Hey everybody, as we were teasing in our last video, today we're going to talk about the nose.
The nose, wow.
And I'll just go ahead and pan around here and then come back to how we got to this point. So there we are. And as you can see, we got a lot of awesome stuff to talk about.
A lot of awesome stuff.
All right.
A lot of progress.
On Scraptona, one of the things we had to do, we did not have front fenders.
Yeah.
We had to buy fenders. And the only thing we could find,
out of all the stuff we had a bunch of stuff
we
got
had
with
a
that.
lot of stuff.
But we did not get any front fenders.
No front fenders.
That's
so
funny.
we had to buy those roached out Coronet fenders. And they were unobtainium prices.
Dude,
whenever you came to me and said, "Hey Lee, I got bad news. We got to buy some Coronet fenders." But the good news is I found some, and you told me the price, and I was like, "That's good news."
Look,
that's terrible.
Hold on, this is 2018,
yeah,
or 2017.
2017.
2017 was a whole different ball game than today. There's no way you could find those fenders for twice what we paid now, but we paid $600 back then on eBay for a pair of roached out Coronet fenders. And when I say roached, I mean like they had so dents all in them. They were rusted out at the bottom. They had some rust holes at the top here. But that's what you put with a Superbird nose. David, will you go away? Anyway.
He's done a great job.
Thank you, David.
That's actually rare for
yeah, hold on. He's just playing for the camera. He usually tells us about how we need to question our life choices, but
yeah.
But anyway,
how awful we are.
Anyway,
so anyway, we on this car, thankfully, as Swiss cheesed out as it was, and as bad as this car was,
it came with 4 fenders.
It came with 4 fenders, so we were way ahead of the game.
Check out the big butt on Generalissimo, but they were all Charger fenders, of course, because this is a 68 Charger.
Yeah.
Now you say, whoa, wait a minute, 68 Charger, but I see a 69 or 70. No, it's not 70. That's a 69 there with the rectangle. But oh, look over here, we have a 68. And by the way, that's the way you can tell a 68 from a 69 fender, is because in 68 they had the little round indicator or a running light, and then on 69 they went to a rectangle. Anyway, but we had a plethora of choices. We went with the original fender on this one, that one right there. I don't know. I think we just grabbed what was convenient, but it worked. Okay. So anyway, but these were never meant to made up to a Superbird nose. And by the way, so those of you who also are keen-eyed, and we talked about this in our last video, Daytonas and Superbirds are completely different cars. And this is actually a Superbird nose. Why did you choose a Superbird nose? Well, first of all, this is a hot rod, so we're not trying to make something that's correct in any way. We're trying to make something fun. But we want to have all the flavor of the originals. The Superbird nose, for lack of a better term, is a little more voluptuous than the Daytona nose.
It's a little bit cooler.
Yeah, well, in many ways. Okay, so first of all, it's a little bit wider, which is good. It also has more curves to it.
Yeah, this right here.
Yeah, the Daytona nose literally just squares off and goes down, right? There might be a slight bit of contouring there, but not like this. But then again, when you got a Charger fender, the Charger fender goes, I mean, it's just it does not have any sweep up here. But so we knew that if we're going to make this work, we had to add that in. Now, on the Scraptona, the Coronet fender already has this matching sweep here, so we didn't have to do anything with that. When we cut the Coronet fender, I cut it in the flat area so that when we welded in the piece, it was just a completely flat piece. But this is not that way. The cool thing about this upsweep here, though, is it does some really nice things with our flare. So if you look here from the side profile, I did 2 things, right? We lifted it up higher, right? But then, and we bent this down a little bit, but then what that does when you lift this up is it automatically wants to make that metal work kind of pop out a little more, which is exactly what we needed to get that extra width. But to make that work, if we had just taken a flat piece of sheet metal and welded that in there, then this would have been like Legos, and we don't want that. So again, I I got out our.
Oh, you took it down.
No, there it is.
Oh,
Yeah,
it is.
I got out our our poverty. We'll call it a poverty a poverty English wheel. And but it's amazing what you can do with this little thing here. And the biggest limitation really that it has is just the size of the neck. So
yeah,
you're limited to how far back you can go and how big of a piece of metal you can work with. But for this kind of thing, honestly, it's perfect. And so I got a clip of just working this a little bit to give it this nice, and to do what I wanted to do here, what we did was we took you can still see the mark. There's a Sharpie mark that goes and dies out right here because I wanted it to be fairly flat when we get to this point. But so what we had here then is a nice transition and a lot of beautiful sculpturing here that we could add to this fender. And we get this body line that sweeps in and matches the nose. Now, the sides of this thing, though, are also nothing like this. But the beauty of it is, once you cut the reinforcements away, which, by the way, while you're still filming that, I'm going to grab one of these nose pieces and I'll show you what we cut away. So this right here was never going to be like this. But once you cut this away, then you've got the ability to shape that. And so what we did was, templates are your friend, and we call this calibrated cardboard or whatever you want to call it, but take the original nose and do a template of the side. So that's the side template here, right there. And you flip it and it's the same over there, right? So this is what you do to make this match up. Oh, that's another thing. Okay. So the Scraptona was an according to Hoyle correct length from the A pillar forward on what a Superbird would have been, because we used everything on the front from the A pillars forward was Superbird on that car. And on that car, I think it's like 8 inches longer front end than this. It might be 10. I haven't pulled the tape measure on it recently, but I know, and we might put these figures up there for you, but because I've got those numbers somewhere. But once again, there are things about, and here comes blasphemy alert, but there are things about the original cars that are just awkward. And what we want to do is take the cool part of that and get rid of the awkwardness, just like we did on the Trans Slam, is that awkward, 6-foot door. So once again, the noses on these were just a little too long.
And high off the ground, way high off the ground.
Yes. So this nose, so what we did was, so right here you can see, so this is 4 inches cut, there I even got it written on there. This is 4 inches cut off of that. But I think the coronet fenders were even longer. So I think that we are like 6 to 8 inches shorter than what they would have been on the actual Superbird nose. But abbreviating this nose slightly, we'll call it a redneck rhinoplasty or whatever. It makes it actually brings the proportions into something that's a little bit more manageable to the eye. And then when you do that in accordance with the wide body, then you have something that really starts taking on exotic proportions as opposed to awkward proportions. So we're taking this dramatic nose, the dramatic wing, the really cool Coke, these are called the Coke bottle Mopars for a reason, and accentuating that, pumping all that up, and you end up with something that is just like drop dead gorgeous. And so, but it takes a lot of work to do that. So once again, cutting this nose off, then once this was cut off, this was a wet noodle. And so then we went in here, and I'll pull this back. Do you think it's time to go ahead and pull this back and show them what we did underneath?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, let's go ahead and do that.
All right. So this is another sort of just nice, this is a sort of a nice little thing if you can put one together. This is the same exact one that John used when he was doing this mock-up on Scraptona for us. And I literally went out there on the back 40 and dug it out of a pile because it is a very useful tool. And as you can see here, with just some baling wire, this thing literally is just hanging here. But once you get it dialed in, then you just in and out, and it is a great tool for lining everything up.
Yeah, it makes it to where you're consistently at the same height all the time, and you can just move things back out of your way, test the fit, take it back out. instead of having to bolt and unbolt and
Mm-hmm.
all that good stuff.
So
while you're moving that out, I'm also another nice little thing that we inherited. These are actually loading dock bumpers that we've got it sitting on, so we can get it at a more comfortable height.
And John used these too when he was doing the heavy lifting on Scraptona.
On Scraptona, yeah.
Yeah.
John from Ozan Speed Shop. We learned a lot.
We did learn a lot from John. And John did the heavy lifting on the chassis and all that work on the Scraptona. We did a lot of the aesthetics. We did all the windows, the paint, a lot of the cutting and the planning on how the wide body was going to go together. But John did the heavy lifting on that, and we learned a lot.
And that's what we have used going forward in all these other builds that we got now.
But now we wanted to build our own, you know.
Yes.
And so here we are.
Here we are. All right. I've got extension cords holding me here. There we go. I think I can get in there. Okay.
Dang it. Yeah, we got a rat's nest here. I'm going to fix that.
You want to do that right now?
Mm-mm. All right. So, as you can see here, a lot of work went into making, and this has got to be nice because all this stuff has to match up, and it's not flat. There's nothing flat about any of this. It's all curves and angles. If you see this angle here, this is not a straight angle here. But just with having this rig here, the way we did it, we were able to just, get it really fine-tuned. And that's important because you don't want it to look like you just literally stuck something on the front of this thing. We want it to all match up. As you can see, it matches really nicely. And matter of fact, I'm going to go out on a limb here and say that our matchup is going to be a little better than the factory because they had to use a big rubber gasket when they did it.
Had a big filler.
And ours is going to match. And we might use a little 1/4-inch gasket, but our stuff is going to go right up there to it. But another key here to sort of fast forwarding this is to use this original core support. And it is dramatically abbreviated, but when we match this up to the original Challenger pieces, then that automatically gives us our width, it gives us our fender angle, it gives us this reinforcement here, and then we have this nice reinforcement here to weld tabs for the attachment points. But now, we don't want to just take this thing and just attach it with some tabs around the perimeter. Then it's just literally hanging off the front of the fenders, and we don't want that. So what we're going to do, and we're already talking about this morning or yesterday, is I'm going to take part of the original bumper structure that bolts right here, and we're going to abbreviate that. And I've already started this process here of this structure here. This is some steel round tube that we had, and we are going to weld tabs on this and make it match up to this section and that section, so that we're not only, so this thing's not being hung off the perimeter of the fenders. That's not going to work from a structural standpoint. It'll sit there and shake, and you don't want that. You want solidity. So the main weight load will be carried by the frame here of the Challenger. Now, the other thing though that we run into with these, I don't know if we've already talked about this much, but this is going to be a turbo car. So we're going to do a turbo Hemi. We wanted something that was drivable, but we wanted to get on it. We wanted it to have some stink. And so the guys at Walker Induction Solutions, they're really masters at these Hemi turbo setups. And if you haven't ever looked into them, they're on Facebook, they're on Instagram. But Walker, he's kind of like the guru, because everybody thinks about superchargers when they think about Hemis because of the Hellcat, right? But turbos are just better than superchargers. Why? Because they're using waste energy. They're using waste energy off the exhaust and turning it into more power, which we like. And they just have more potential for power because of that. But also, they're fairly efficient. If you're not getting into it, they don't cost you a penny, really. And, heck, it eliminates 200 pounds of exhaust.
Right. Yeah.
So anyway, the turbo is going to sit right here. Lord willing.
Yeah, Walker was telling us actually that if you put exhaust on the turbo system, it makes it really obnoxious and loud, right? Didn't he say that? Or was I dreaming that?
No, he said that.
It kind of blows my mind. I'm kind of curious about that.
He might be trying to make me feel better about not running exhaust. when I talked to, if I told you about that, but yeah, look,
No, I
so
was in my office and I was listening to that. I was like, is that for real?
look,
We'll
so
see. We're gonna
the
find out.
best muffler in the world is a turbo, right? I mean,
I guess so, man. We're gonna
so
find out about
we're
that.
gonna find out because we're gonna kick out the exhaust right around here
Right
somewhere,
in there.
and then we're gonna see just how much we hate our lives after that.
Yeah.
But anyway, but when you're doing a turbo setup, you got to think about a few things like intercoolers.
Yeah.
So our plan, and this is going to be slightly unorthodox, is going to be to mount the intercooler horizontally right here above the radiator, and it's going to take up all this real estate in this open zone between the front of the fenders and the core support. And our plan is to take this box intake here, is we're going to open this up. See, the problem with Superbirds and Daytonas is they don't have a lot of nose area for intake for air. And we really want all this, as much of this intake as possible to be for cooling the engine. But we have to also cool the intercooler. And we could take and put the big intercooler right in the front there, but then we're going to be heating up the air 100, 150 degrees hotter than what it would be already, which is not great for cooling.
Going into the
Right.
radiator of the car itself.
So we're going to do a little bit of armchair engineering, I guess you could call it. Let me grab this piece over here. Our plan is to do a little bit of armchair engineering and siphon off just a little bit of this air. So here's another thing, like the plan is to either cut this back to here, right, and box it in, or put holes on this area. And the radiator literally drops down about a half an inch lower than this. So this right here, the idea is to bring all the air we can to the radiator, but also at the same time, so this little bit extra that we're adding here, we're going to take a little bit of it away and put this about an inch down from that opening there and have it come to about right here. And then the intercooler will sit right here and it'll have its own air source and eject the air out. So this should be the high pressure zone on the car as it hits the air.
Yeah.
And then as you come over the hood, this should be a lower pressure zone, right?
Right.
And so not only should the scoop do its thing, but it should also extract air as well. We see a lot of race cars with extractors, and that's and then the only thing is we might end up just adding a couple little tabs here and here just to give it just a little more bump in negative pressure there. But I think it's going to work really well, and it's not going to siphon off. It's not going to heat up our coolant air, and it's not going to siphon off much of the capacity, especially considering on the Scraptona we use that whole area for cooling, and we never had any problem with overheating on that car. So out of all the things that we did have issues with,
that was not one of
that
them.
was not one of them,
thankfully.
So anyway, the thought is we add a little bit more capacity down here, siphon off a little bit of this capacity for the intercooler, and then the intercooler will be kind of nice and up there for you to see and enjoy.
Yeah.
So.
All right, well, let's talk about a couple other things here. Let's talk about, you talked about English wheel, filling this in. Now we've got a lot of missing metal here. So let's talk about our plans there.
Okay.
On Scraptona, I don't know if you'll remember this. I'll throw some pictures up, but we have the pods just like these.
No, those are the ones.
These are the these are the pods that we've gotten for Scraptona. And when we put it up there, we were like, boy, we have a lot of open space underneath here because it was a full custom chassis. And we decided, you know what? Why don't we make our own pods? Because we've got all this open space that would go well beyond this right here. Well,
yeah.
So what we did is we took some, I had a couple of Kawasaki gas tanks extra laying around, KZ 750s. And we took one of those and cut it up and made the pods out of it. And you'll see it
was really nice. It covered the whole top. It looked like, really, if you didn't know we had done it, you'd almost think it was the same thing.
It was the original. And the cool thing was it was also metal. I really liked that.
Right. So. But so here's the other thing, when you're building a build like this, you want function to follow, you want form to follow function, not the other way around. And so if you do a good job with that, then the reason things exist, they have a good reason, and you end up with something that even if it doesn't look maybe the way you planned, it has a function. And if you look inside here, we've got chassis right to this point right here.
Yeah.
So,
and we didn't have that on Scrap Tona. It was completely open. That was
yeah,
the point I was trying to make.
yeah,
earlier.
and if the Scrap Tona would have been built like we said it was built, then they would have definitely made it. They would have extracted all that air out, right? Yeah. Which, by the way, and I don't think we talked about this. I mean, it's been a long time ago, but the reason for these is to scavenge high pressure air from underneath the car and cause more vacuum to suck the car down.
Yep.
And so these were very functional pieces, and they're going to be functional on this as well. So the idea is, the plan is to use these and place them right here on the edge, and because we've got nothing but metal underneath here anyway, they're not going to be. But the other thought we've kind of considered is to do sort of a Ferrari-esque. Because if you guys are familiar with like the LaFerrari or whatever, they got the tail lights or the headlights that come up, and they have these vents that come across, and Porsche does it as well. So we also considered just cutting out a rectangle here and doing louvers.
We might do that.
We might do that instead, but either way, it's just going to be a very functional piece. It's going to extract the air from this part of the fender, and either one's going to do a great job. Whether we use these pods that we had already from the Scrap Tuna build, or whether we build the louvers. The louvers are kind of our thing. We've done that on a lot of the cars, so we might end up going that direction. But this is really nice and cool, and it does say, it does say wing car. So
absolutely. One of the other things, let's talk about this challenge. So obviously, we're taking something that actually was, and we're putting this fictional flare on it, and
right.
That's great and everything, but the big challenge is once you start that, you started on one side, making that other side match up.
Oh, yeah.
That is not easy to do. And man, Michael has done a fantastic job of executing on that.
Yeah,
of course, this is still very, very raw and everything, but these lines are matching up.
Every one of these cuts, whatever I did over here, I measured these. Matter of fact, see right here, I've written all these measurements down. Boom, 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 boom. All the way back to here, 44 inches. So we could keep it consistent. So whatever I did here, then I had to go back and do over there.
Yeah, so he did this one first, then he made the measurements and did the same thing over here on this side. And that's how he was able to execute and pull this off right here.
Right. So once again, there's the English wheel work we did. And
yep. So what else you want to talk about here?
I don't know. I think we've covered the progress so far. I mean, what you end up with though is this beautiful voluptuous curve that kind of flares out over the tires. And we were talking about this. You can look here. I mean, we're going to have to cut more of this away.
Yeah.
But we're going to have to kind of sneak up on it. We don't want to cut too much.
No, we don't want to go crazy.
Right. So we're going to continue to, once we figure out what we're going to do to secure the bottom of these fenders, because they're not secure down here, then we'll do the finished cut on these wheel openings. But as you can see already, we've cut a lot of metal out, and probably going to end up, to your point, Lee, probably end up cutting it about right
coming
there.
on it. Yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking, and I think it'll look good. I think that's going to pull that race car-esque feel that we're trying to achieve.
Yeah, here. Wheels tucked up into the body and all that. But
yeah, absolutely. Well, okay, so look, I know a lot of you have been asking about our wheels, and I promise we've got a video coming up on it. We're going to make some adjustments on the wheels that you can get around, because that one doesn't have one in it, but this right here has got a prototype on it. We've made some adjustments to this, and we're going to talk about that probably next video or the video after. Anyway, we've got a lot to discuss there and tell you how we're doing this and why we're doing it. And yeah, so awesome. Thanks so much for watching, guys.
Thanks.